In every crime story, and make no mistake, this is a crime story, there is a moment where investigators stop asking about the perpetrator and start asking about everyone else. Who knew? Who looked away? Who heard the plan and didn't make a phone call, write an email, pull an alarm? In the case of He Jiankui, that question has been asked. It has never been fully answered, but what has emerged is deeply uncomfortable. A portrait not of a lone mad scientist operating in isolation, but of a man who moved through well-lit corridors of legitimate science, talking to people, soliciting advice, perhaps asking permission in ambiguous ways that made it easy for others not to hear. In the months before He Jiankui's announcement, multiple researchers knew that he was working on something involving CRISPR and human embryos. Some had been told directly. Some had received email inquiries. Some had given advice, scientific, technical, or ethical, without ever clearly telling him to stop. A Stanford bioethicist named William Hurlbut, who had met with He Jiankui multiple times, and whose name appeared in He's presentation materials, said something that crystallized the problem. Many people knew, Hurlbut said. Many people encouraged him. He did not do this in a corner. That phrase, "he did not do this in a corner," should sit uncomfortably with everyone in the scientific community. Because if he didn't do it in a corner, then the people who knew had choices, and the choices they made, to continue the conversation, to offer technical guidance, to refrain from formal objection, are part of this story. He Jiankui's doctoral advisor at Rice University, Michael Deem, was reportedly named on one of his submitted papers, and appears to have known about aspects of the research. The extent of Deem's involvement became the subject of investigation. Rice University conducted an inquiry. Deem eventually resigned. He Jiankui had also spent time at Stanford, where he formed connections in the gene editing world. The relationships he built there, legitimate, academic, the normal networking of science, later became the threads that investigators pulled at, trying to map the full constellation of who was in the loop. None of this means that any of these individuals are criminally responsible for what He Jiankui did. But it raises a harder question. In a world where the scientific community depends on informal norms, trust, shared values, the assumption that colleagues will self-police, what happens when one person decides those norms don't apply to him? After his release from prison, He Jiankui did something that surprised even those who thought they had a full picture of the case. He revealed that his new research, a gene editing program for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, was being funded in part by American donors. He refused to name them. He refused to name them in every interview he gave. He has continued to refuse. American money flowing to a scientist convicted of illegal human experimentation, funding new research that he says could lead to human clinical trials, and no one knows who the donors are. This is not a closed case. This is an open question. The institutions responded to the scandal in ways that were entirely predictable. His university issued statements of condemnation. Professional bodies distanced themselves. International summits convened. The WHO established an expert advisory committee on human genome editing. Papers were published calling for stronger governance frameworks, all of it appropriate, all of it necessary, and all of it arguably too late, and possibly too shallow, because the governance gap that He Jiankui exploited was not a secret. Scientists had been warning for years that the CRISPR revolution was moving faster than the ethics frameworks designed to govern it. The 2015 moratorium on germline editing was a recommendation, not a law. There was no international treaty with teeth, no enforcement mechanism, no way to stop a scientist with private funding and a secluded laboratory from simply going ahead. He Jiankui didn't break through a wall. He walked through a door that was never properly locked. In episode 4, we look at the sentencing, the prison term, the release, and the part of this story that should alarm you most. Because the punishment has been served. The man is free, and he is not done. End of episode 3.